Resident Evil 4 Remake is a great game and is probably on the Game of the Year list for many players. The story, level design, and action makes it an unforgettable experience for all gamers new and old. But what if you took out the key aspect of the game and didn't kill a single enemy? How would it change the game? Would it even be possible? Well, I'll put those exact questions to the test. I tried to beat Resident Evil 4 Remake without killing any enemies and being a true pacifist. Now this may not sound too bad if you are unfamiliar with how the game works with counting kills, or if you've seen speedrunners who run past many of the enemies anyways. But trust me, this is damn near impossible and it took me many hours to beat single sections of the game. So let's go ahead and set the rules of the run. 1. I am under no circumstance allowed to kill an enemy unless it is required to progress the game. If that is the case, I can only kill enemies with the starting handgun non-upgraded. 2. The enemy's killed counter at the end of the chapter must say 0, or the number of unavoidable enemies in said chapter. 3. The set difficulty of the run is hardcore and cannot be changed. 4. I am not allowed to melee attack the enemies. 5. I am allowed to parry with a knife to negate damage, but I cannot use it defensively. This applies to bosses and enemies grabbing me. 6. I am allowed to use any glitches. This includes out of bounds, door skips, etc. 7. This isn't a set in stone rule, but I will avoid using grenades and any handgun ammo as much as possible. So most of this run will be me running past enemies as much as possible and avoiding doing any sort of damage. This was the main plan anyway, and it goes out the window multiple times as you will see very soon. But before we get into the start of this challenge, I just want to ask very quickly that you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot and I'll love you forever. Also, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Dante Ravioli for giving me the idea for this video. He did this exact premise on the original version of Resident Evil 4 and it was a very big inspiration for this video. Alright, let's go. So starting the game, Leon with his $1,500 jacket makes his way to a village on the orders to rescue the president's daughter, which he thinks one man with a handgun and 10 bullets will be enough to do. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Unbeknownst to him though, we won't be needing those anyway. 2 lovely locals escort me in their patrol vehicle, and one just so happens to end up going missing. I wonder what could have happened. Leon hops out and tries to find him and pulls up on a small lodge. He decides to invite himself in and finds a local who isn't so friendly, so I decided to give him a neck massage to calm him down. I am a pacifist after all. Shh, it's okay buddy. Sweet dreams. I then make my way downstairs and it seems my escort is not doing so well, so we're just gonna leave him alone. But hey, the old local is up and roaring after that neck massage, so that's good at least. Mission accomplished. Now that everything's all good, I grab an herb from the drawer after walking past someone and let myself out. Something is fishy about this whole situation though. I mean, why was that guy so hostile to me in the first place? Could it be that they actually don't like me? Well, no reason to think about it now because we're coming up to the first section that actually gave me some trouble on this pacifist journey, the village. This is where I 1, realized that these locals are not as friendly as I thought, and 2, not being able to break my moral code of no killing was going to be a massive problem. I don't know if you guys would believe me or not, but not being able to shoot the enemies in an action-oriented game causes some big problems. So I had to rely on my movement and parrying skills to get me through this. Thankfully, even though I had some pretty close calls, I was able to clutch it out after waiting out the timer.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Can I just say how glad I am that that is still in the game? Anyway, after the bingo section, I head into the farm area, which is a little scuffed, but more or less painless. Now I know I said I want to avoid shooting with the handgun as much as possible, but I wanted to bend the rules to show you all a cool skip you can do here to get to COG faster. Pretty neat, right? We grab that, open the gate, and as we're pushing the carriage with the cow in it, a ganado decides to stare me down. It got a little intimate, I'm not gonna lie.
The thug shaker. Give me the thug shaker, dude. Shake your ass.
Anyway, I continue down the path and do the most unnecessary backflip ever just in case a certain red dress wearing lady is watching and avoid several more ganados who are not happy to see me at all. I eventually come across a shack and hear banging and struggling. I make my way to it and a ganado very politely allows me to take off the boards off the floor door thingy and even gives me a nice pat on the back as encouragement. After dropping down, I help a name by the man of Luis come out of his sack. And then Mendez the village chief dropped his sack on my face and lays me out. He then ejects me with the cooties and signals the end of chapter 1. Now whatever first impression chapter 1 gave you on how difficult this would be, just completely ignore it because this is where shit immediately became a massive problem. I was on this chapter for literal hours because of the part is ahead. But do not let me get ahead of myself. So I wake up after getting smoked by the village chief and I'm tied up with Luis. A dream for gay men and women around the world. Luis and I help yet another ganado by giving him a neck massage. Maybe I should have become a chiropractor instead of an agent. Luis runs away after freeing himself, but he at least left me the key, so I'll give him a pass. After that, it turns out the Ganados took all my gear and I have to get it back. And this is where the game teaches you about how to use the knife to stealth kill and parry. Of course, we can't stealth kill under any circumstance, but we are definitely going to be using the parry. I run past all the enemies and start turning the valve to open the door to get my gear, and of course, I run into a bear trap, as is the fate of every single Resident Evil 4 Remake player. So, I have to do it again. I eventually get it done though, and we come across the merchant. Now here's the thing, I can't really do any of the requests he gives us because most of them involve killing things such as rat or snakes, or shooting medallions, both of which go against the premise of this run. Even though the rats and snakes to my knowledge don't count towards kills, I refuse to kill them in the name of pacifism. As for the medallions, I want to avoid shooting the handgun as much as possible, so I opted to not go for them. This means there is a very limited amount of requests left for me to complete, and they don't give very many spinels. Basically, the merchant isn't going to be very helpful as the only thing I can really do is buy resources, body armor, and a couple things for my knife. I do grab a sniper rifle with a scope, however. This is for very important glitches that will help a ton throughout the run. As unfortunate as it may seem, it isn't so bad since I won't have to worry about my economy or looting at all. The only thing I need is handgun ammo and flash grenades for the most part. With the merchant's role for this challenge explained, we head into the valley. Now I thought this was going to be a cakewalk. Just grab the medallion, turn the valve to get back, and then run past everything and go into the house to trigger the end of the chapter. Now imagine my shock when I did this and realized I had killed 11 enemies at the end of the chapter even though I didn't shoot anyone at all. This is what I was hinting at all the way back at the start of the video with how the game values kills. It turns out, if an enemy dies in any way, it will count as me killing them and add it to the enemy's killed counter. This means every single enemy the dynamite enemies killed during the chapter counted towards my kills. So I would somehow have to navigate the entire section while making sure the dynamite guys didn't kill anyone, which is very, very difficult. Not only that, the dynamite enemies are extremely stupid and will hold the dynamite in their hands indefinitely if you aren't close enough for the AI to throw it at you. So basically, I have to make sure the dynamite enemies don't kill anyone by making the dynamite miss everyone and also be close enough to them so they don't end up killing themselves. Not to mention the obvious fact that I myself have to survive. Yeah, this is f***ed up. So at this point, I will have a retry counter at the end of each chapter for you to see how many times in a chapter, as well as the game as a whole, I die, an enemy is killed, etc. Basically, the amount of failures I have in any way. Spoiler alert, it is an absolutely unbelievable amount of times. As I was doing this section, I just kept pondering to myself exactly what I just got myself into if the second chapter of this entire game is this hard. But I continued anyway. P.S. I'd really like to see your predictions for how many tries it'll take to beat a certain chapter in the whole game. I tried several different strategies. My first idea was to grab the items in the small shack directly to my left after dropping down so I could have those items as a safety net. But I then realized this would take forever since I would need to do this for every single attempt, so I eventually ditched that idea. My next main idea was to run down the path to the right and jump through the window to get into the shack, and then climb the ladder to the top to grab the medallion. This also didn't work out very well as trying to navigate to the valve without the dynamite enemies killing themselves or others was pretty much impossible from this position. My next idea after that was to run down the path to the left past one of the Ganados and try to bait out the dynamite guys to throw a stick of dynamite on the staircase so it would fall beneath the steps and keep everyone safe. While this idea was a good start, it was real inconsistent since the dynamite enemies sometimes just refused to go under the steps, which resulted in a very prompt death for me. Okay, I tried this method for a while and I got pretty close, but the dynamite guys were still halting my progress because I simply could not get to the valve and back to the medallion door in time before someone blew up. At this point, after trying both of these methods for a couple of hours, I decided to just go back and see if I could somehow find a glitch to get past that damn door without the medallion key. I tried to put myself out of bounds with the typewriter and the sniper, but I realized that was a dead end immediately. I then went all the way back to the beginning of the chapter where Luis and I were tied up to see if there were any autosave triggers, which wouldn't have helped that much really, but I was willing to try anything else after so many failures. Alas, after realizing my attempts were entirely futile, I went back to trying a different strategy. This strategy was my best one yet, and I knew it could work with some luck and quick movement. My plan was to do the entire section in reverse. Instead of grabbing the medallion first, I would go open the gate with the valve first and then grab the medallion afterward. I then realized another massive breakthrough with this strategy. So after opening the gate, I would run all the way back to the merchant and save the game or get an autosave. Enemies in Resident Evil 4 Remake can't go past a certain boundary from their designated rooms, so to speak. This meant that I would be completely safe on the way back, and it would keep anyone from killing themselves with the dynamite since they wouldn't be aggroed to light the dynamite. It wasn't entirely foolproof, however, because if an enemy lit a stick of dynamite on my way back without me ever knowing, they would blow themselves up. But this was by far my best idea, so I tried and tried again. Slowly but surely I got closer and closer. All I needed was for these stupid dynamite enemies to give a singular chance and I would be smooth sailing. Now when I tell you this dynamite guy right here was the absolute bane of my existence, there was almost no way for me to consistently have him avoiding killing the other Ganados, so I opted for the strategy of pressing the W key and praying. After several failed attempts, I finally got through the gate and was able to make a save. Now all I needed to do was head back and get the medallion without letting anyone die. To my surprise, it didn't take too many attempts to get the medallion and come back. Surely what I said earlier about the dynamite guys blowing themselves up on the way to the house wouldn't happen, right? Right? Well, no time to think about that now. I run past all the enemies. Despite getting grabbed a few times, it was more or less painless. I head into the house and await to see the chapter results. God damn it. This was really scary because this could mean a couple of things. 1. The enemy died on my way back after getting the medallion. Or 2. The enemy died before I opened the gate with the valve and the autosave would have kept his death on my counter. I prayed to God it was just the first theory and tried again. I didn't record this run because I was an absolute idiot, but I basically did the same thing to get the medallion but a bit safer to make sure no one died. I died to the damn chainsaw guy on my way back after a bear trap, but it didn't matter. All that mattered was seeing the results at the end of the chapter. And okay, I wasn't recording the last attempt, but here's proof that I did it without killing anyone. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I fucking did it. 0 kills on that stupid section. Let's go! So yeah, I finally managed to have every single enemy in that cursed chapter survive, which means my suffering is over. Except it isn't, because I have 14 chapters left in this game. Well, I guess we can continue at least. Chapter 3 was a lot easier and was a much needed breath of fresh air after the torture of Chapter 2. After getting up from the village chief laying me out like a sack of potatoes, I made my way outside and see a poor dog in a bear trap. Knowing the pain, I help it out and wish it the best. And then immediately ran into a bear trap myself. Oh, how poetic. After that, I head into the church to see if I can find Ashley. I run past the dogs and all the enemies in the village and come up to the church graveyard. Here I complete one of the few requests that I can complete with the challenge criteria set. I decimate one of the twin graves with my knife and go on my merry way. After arriving at the church, I have to find a key to enter, so I do what I'm best at and run past all of the enemies to advance. I eventually come across a fish farm and some big Brutus looking ass dude with a massive sledgehammer that kinda makes me feel insecure comes and tries to whip my ass, so I try to run past him too. I disarm the tripwires and loot as much as I can before grabbing the boat fuel and heading back the way I came. After grabbing the boat fuel, a woman and her man bust down my door and start getting freaky with it. But I ain't that kind of guy, so I kick her off me and run. Going up the ladder, I get an axe to the ass and a machete to the back as a parting gift before jumping off a cliff that definitely should have broken every bone in my legs, but I'm just that guy. I run past Big B again before narrowly escaping his sledgehammer Beyblade move. I hop on that boat using the fuel, and unfortunately, I'm forced to kill the first enemy of the game. There was no way to avoid killing Del Lago, so I did what was necessary and put it out of its misery with some harpoons. Didn't take damage either, so I take pride in that. After coughing up a bunch of blood because of the cooties Mendez gave us, I pass out in the boat. With that chapter done, it was time to check the kill counter. Yeah, I should have known the game wouldn't make it that easy for me, but at least I was pretty certain of where the additional kills came from this time. You see, when Brutus was doing his Beyblade attack, there were a few enemies behind him, so there's a pretty good chance the swings hit people from the back and killed them, adding to my kill counter. I played the entire chapter yet again doing the exact same methods, but I made sure that Brutus didn't kill anyone before going back to the boat. Del Lago went a lot less smooth, but he was defeated nonetheless, and this time the kill counter was accurate to what it should have been. Nice. With chapter 3 done, we head right back into a fairly tricky chapter with chapter 4, because our best friends with the dynamite return. In this chapter, you have to solve a couple of puzzles to get key items for the key that opens the church door. I make a pit stop at Bakba Soup Island to grab some chicken eggs for heals and a golden chicken egg that I'll use much later in the game. I grab a bunch of treasures, the free red 9, and the easy key item before going to get the key item that will be a pain in the backside. Once I arrive at the annoying key item, I immediately get the PTSD from chapter 2, but I know I have to start thinking of a strategy to keep him from killing the other Ganados. My first plan was to lure the first enemy I saw as far away as possible so I could bait the dynamite without killing him. Even though it didn't play out how I had expected it to whatsoever, it kinda worked, so I just ran past everyone. Unfortunately, the dynamite guy followed me, and the Ganados in all of their infinite wisdom just decided to run right on top of it and kill themselves. So I had to reload the checkpoint. My next idea was to just run forward and pray, but of course the dynamite guy is just so damn stupid to the point he throws the dynamite at the wall nowhere near his target and instead kills all of his friends. So I have to reload again. This exact scenario happened several times over, but I eventually was able to get past everyone without anyone dying. I grabbed the item I needed and tried to head back. I then immediately ran into yet another genius Ganado with a Molotov that tries to hit me with it, misses horribly, and then decides to stamp in it, doing a dance until he dies. Man, these guys are so smart. Eventually the stars align and I get the hell out of there without anyone dying. I didn't even bother to loot because there's no benefit to me doing that really. I start heading toward the church, not realizing that I'd forgot to get the damn key, so I have to backtrack to grab it. Once I do grab it and head back yet again, it's time for the first genuine boss that I can't skip or avoid killing besides Del Lago. So that means I have to take him down with a default handgun. That boss is no other than El Gigante. I had a whopping 140 plus bullets for this section after looting the area, so I was pretty confident I could get this done. I tried to keep my distance as much as I could and used the buildings as cover to get some shots in before he tore it down. I didn't realize that tearing the buildings down could actually damage you, however, and I take it dead. Well, I guess you learn something new every day at least. Eventually on the second attempt, the dog I saved from the bear trap earlier comes to help, and boy when I tell you I am glad I saved that damn dog because this fight would have been impossible without him. The dog gave me plenty of time to get some shots in and gave me a free opening to attack his Plaga. This is what allowed me to clutch out the victory versus the giant because I managed to finish this fight with damn near no ammo left. Mainly because the damn Plaga on his back got glitched in the wall at one point, making me miss a golden opportunity to deal damage. Oh, by the way, I wasn't jumping on his back to attack him with a knife. After the giant was dead, I gave the doggo my farewell and made my way to the church where I came across a more unfriendly and monstrous doggo. I ignored him like I do all of my other life problems and made my way around it. I got into the church, looted as much as I could, and then solved the puzzle. These puzzles make you wonder if the Ganados themselves know the solutions, or what the purpose of the puzzles even is when they could have just made a key and Leon would have been shit out of luck as long as it was somewhere well hidden. Oh well, I guess it doesn't matter. All that matters is that we found Ashley. The bad news is that there is like a dozen or so people that want to kill me heading to the church. The other good news is that this is the end of the chapter. Chapter 5. Oh god, Chapter 5. This chapter was when I really started to regret doing this challenge. If you've played the remake or the original, you know what's coming up at the end of this chapter. But before that, I had to make it there, which is easier said than done to be honest. This chapter was when I also realized just how damn dumb Ashley's AI can be, and how cringe the AI can be when they're aggro to her. So after we got out of the church by jumping out of the attic, I wanted to see how effective it would be to just run past all of the enemies and if Ashley would follow me like she did in the original game. I quickly realized this was not going to work, which was a massive problem because if Ashley gets grabbed, I cannot save her. The only way I can get them to drop Ashley is to throw a flash grenade, which I'm trying to avoid using as much as possible, so running past all the enemies was pretty much the only choice I had. I tried about a few dozen times to get past all the enemies without her getting grabbed, but she refused to keep moving and stay behind me. That or the enemies would literally instant transmission behind her and grab her before I even knew it. After a trillion restarts, I finally made it past the Ganados. Unfortunately though, one of the Ganados decided to kamikaze a Molotov into us as we passed and killed themselves. So, f*** me I guess. After several more failures, I remembered a glitch that you can do to get out of the church without Ashley, which was the absolute best case scenario. If at all possible, I want to keep Ashley far, far away from danger, even if that means abandoning her entirely. So I drop through the floor in the attic to the bottom floor and run past everything. I make my way past the village and the farm while narrowly avoiding Brutus III and end up in the cabin section. Luis signals for us to go into a house with him and escape the baddies on our tail. We start getting intimate with them, but get cut short due to some rude Ganados. So we tell Ashley to hide so we can survive this ordeal. Which is pretty funny because she was still in the attic, but it don't matter.
It's game time.
I don't know if I can properly explain how difficult this cabin section is to do without killing anyone. The most frustrating part about this whole ordeal is that even if I don't shoot anyone, it doesn't matter because if Luis kills anyone then it's blood on my hands. To complete this section with 0 enemies killed, I have to stop Luis from killing anyone, which is damn near impossible. My first attempt was using a glitch I found where the enemies can't hit you. You can do this by going to the second floor and getting on the balcony. Point your back to the point shown and aim the sniper down while holding back. You'll be walking into the wall and the enemies won't be able to hit you. When the cutscene for the ladder happens, just aim down again quickly. If it all goes well, you can get through the whole cabin without shooting a single bullet or taking a single hit of damage. After the cabin, I had 4 kills on my counter. Well, that really sucks because that meant I would have to do the cabin again, but this time I had to put myself in danger and go straight into the bee's nest to keep Luis from shooting the poor villagers. After getting to the cabin again, I realized that if I pulled out my handgun and aimed it at Luis, he would dodge to the side and get out of the line of sight. This locks Luis into the animation and keeps him from shooting anyone. This was a great start, but there was a big problem. This animation is pitifully slow and would not stop Luis for long. So essentially, I would have to be aiming at Luis 24/7 while avoiding the attacks from the Ganados. I tried this for hours and several dozen attempts, but I would either die or Luis would kill someone with a lucky crit shot or a melee attack. Another roadblock I quickly came across was the fact that only 2 of the villagers could be aggroed to Luis at a time. This left me to deal with, like 8 or so enemies to deal with at once. I guess Luis's impenetrable charm and charisma deterred most of the villagers from attacking him. This really sucked because it gave Luis less enemies to worry about shooting at once, which meant it was only inevitable that he would eventually kill one of them. No matter how hard I tried to keep him locked in that dodging animation, he would still end up killing one of them. I then tried combining both of the previous methods I had used into one. I would get Luis logged into the animation for as long as I could, then after a while of repeating this, I would go to the balcony to keep myself safe and pray that Luis would somehow spare the villagers downstairs. To no one's surprise, this didn't work out how I planned the first try. I went downstairs after the first phases ended, and there were bodies all over the ground. I was confident that the strategy could work, however, so I kept trying and trying. Well, it's safe to say that if the strategy was possible, it wasn't very viable since I was trying forever and never got past the first phase with no casualty. The most annoying part was sometimes I couldn't even make it out of the damn balcony to check the first floor. I would get stun-locked or just outright knocked out of the glitch by a shovel guy. It was just a complete mess. So after failing for about 3 hours at this point, I found another strategy by pure accident and frustration. So I lured Luis over to the bottom of the staircase heading to the second floor. In a very angry fit, I locked him in the animation and bullied him up the stairs to the second floor with me. Then I stuck him next to the bed where the ladder is. Thinking it was just a funny trick, I had made the most brilliant breakthrough possible. It turns out Luis's AI is even more stupid than I thought. So when he's upstairs during the second phase, since he's not supposed to be up there yet, he'll try to make his way back downstairs, but his pathing is just so bad that he'll run toward the ladder indefinitely and will never make it down there. I had a massively good feeling about this chapter after learning about this because this effectively meant that I had nothing to worry about for the entire first phase of the cabin, because Luis would never shoot any of the Ganados because he was constantly trying to get to the first floor, but he couldn't. So after getting everything set up, I went to the balcony and tried once more. Then, I think at this point the game just knew what I was up to and hit me with the shit that I have never seen before. The enemies were constantly dragging me out of the glitch spot and hitting me even though they shouldn't have been able to. I died a good 10 times at the least to these mishaps, and I was honestly starting to get really pissed off at this point. It was kind of funny at first how seemingly impossible this chapter would be, but after so many failed attempts, the humor quickly faded away and it was really starting to get to me, especially with how close I felt I was after the developments in this strategy. At this point, I just took a break and came at it the next day. The next day was more or less the same old BS, but I kept trying and trying because I knew all it would take is one good run. I got really close at one point, but I got knocked out of the glitch and the sledgehammer guy that comes at the end killed a bunch of the villagers as well as myself. Oh, and that's another part that's really hard. The sledgehammer Brutus's kills count toward mine if you recall what happened in chapter 3. So this meant I had to get the glitch to work at the end or else he would kill a bunch of the villagers, giving me a much bigger problem than just Luis at that point. This really sucked because it meant I had absolutely no choice but to do this glitch for the second phase and pray Luis wouldn't kill anyone during it. Then, it finally happened. What I felt was the God run. I had Luis stuck, I wasn't getting knocked out of the glitch, everything was going perfect. Then came the second phase and everything still went fine. I didn't even need to do anything special or readjust, everything just worked. Now all that was left to pray to God Luis wouldn't kill anyone. I was so close to the end of the chapter, and to my absolute terror, I heard this. At this point I already knew it was over, but I had to see the results screen for myself. The end of the chapter came, and alas, it was time to see the enemies killed counter for myself. Okay, look guys, I know you all may be really upset at me for this, but I really tried my damn hardest to get this chapter done with 0 kills on the counter. But I was really burnt out on this chapter and wanted to get this video out at a good time, so I cut my losses and settled with 2 enemies killed at the end of the chapter. I know for a fact it's possible to get 0 kills, so you can call this a skill issue for sure, but like I said, I was really burnt out and just wanted to move on. This marks some first and hopefully final true failure of the challenge. At least I technically didn't kill any enemies myself, but that didn't dampen the blow much, to be honest. Chapter 6 went a lot better at least. I abused many glitches in this chapter to get past, but before I could use any of those I had to get past a couple of parts. After chilling with the merchant for a bit, Ashley and I moved forward to the camp that was ahead. This part wasn't too bad, and I even found a neat little trick. If you run past all the enemies in this camp and get to the checkpoint after the next door, you can reload the checkpoint, and even if Ashley was grabbed, the enemies will no longer be aggroed and she'll come running right to you. Pretty neat. Moving ahead is the section where you're meant to fight 2 chainsaw sisters to get the checkpoint crank that allows you to progress to the next section. Using a glitch, however, you can completely skip all of this. If you use the sniper and get a checkpoint while aiming down and extending your hitbox into the wall of the house, you can put yourself inside of the wall after reloading the checkpoint, allowing you to walk out of bounds. After carefully navigating the out of bounds, I made it past the checkpoint door you're supposed to use the crank for. I even made friends with the lovely Bella sisters who were waiting for me on the other side. After making their acquaintance, I head forward through the next door where Ashley magically teleports to me yet again. Mendez the prickhead tries to take Ashley, so we're forced to run away from him RE2 style. The main problem here is that you're meant to take out all of these enemies on your way out. This is further encouraged by the fact all of their health values are at 1 shot, so any bullet will kill them. And if Ashley gets incapacitated or captured, then it's pretty much game over for me immediately. I got pretty close to completing this section on the first attempt, but alas, Mendez caught her and I was forced to reload the checkpoint. The second attempt went great though. Ashley followed me like a good girl and we made it past no problem. Now why the hell can't she just act like that all the time? Whatever, all that matters is that we made it. And here you're supposed to fight Mendez in an epic fiery battle. But using pretty much the same glitch used to skip the Bella sisters, we can skip it entirely. If you go to the top of the stairs, aim your sniper at the ground and walk back into the wall while going down the stairs, you'll eventually get the checkpoint and be put into the wall of the building. After navigating the out of bounds yet again, you can skip the fight in its entirety and meet Mendez where he's a lot more friendly. It's like a little bro versus big bro situation. After that, we ran into the castle. That finally signals the end of the village section of the game and puts us into the castle. But before that, we need to check out the kill counter. Hell yeah. Now if you thought that cabin was bad, good lord are you in for a treat with this chapter. This chapter was RNG and like hell and it was essentially impossible. So at the beginning of this chapter, Luis tells us to meet up with him somewhere so we can slow down the progression of our cooties. So that leads us to going through this massive castle. And boy do I just wish we didn't. Maybe the cooties taking me out would have just been a better fate. The first enemy we come face to face with is a new Plaga type, and this is one of, if not the most dangerous. If you let it catch you slipping, it can instantly bite your head off, which, as you can probably guess, instantly kills you. So if possible, we'll be avoiding that at all costs. Ashley and I run past him and go on our merry way. That is at least until we get ambushed by some bow and arrow enemies, but we just run past them as well. Now this next section is where shit got real. In this section there are catapult enemies constantly shooting shit at you. And if it hits you, it's obviously not going to be a good time. If it hits Ashley, that's even worse because it's pretty easy for her to get stun locked by it over and over and over, even if you pick her up. There's also zealots all over the damn place trying to phone check me and grab Ashley to take her away. This is a double whammy because the catapults can kill the zealots as well, so I had to keep them from getting hit by it. Before any of that, however, I turn to the left and shoot the thing holding the cannon down so I can immediately head up to the top and shoot the door open to get into the castle. Again, normally I wouldn't use the handgun if I don't need to, but it's a pretty cool trick and I think it's pretty much a requirement for not killing anyone. After a bunch of failed attempts, I wanted to see if I could find any out of bounds glitches that would help me get this done faster. I found a really hilarious glitch that soft locked me, but it wasn't helpful in any way. So I tried a few paths and timing to get to the catapult without anyone dying. But at the end of the day, like most of my strategies, I said to hell with it and decided to run forward and pray for the best. This turned out to be a pretty decent idea because Ashley was inevitably going to get grabbed, so I needed to abuse the checkpoint system to keep her from getting grabbed and causing a game over. When you shoot the door open to get into the castle, you get a checkpoint, so I immediately reloaded it and hoped that Ashley would be fine. Well, she was for a while before getting grabbed again because this game hates me. This wasn't the end of the world though, and was definitely the least of my worries because I had to get to the damn door without the catapult killing anyone. There was absolutely no way to keep the people from dying to the catapult, and I mean this with everything I believe in. No matter the timing, what route, or anything I did, these people would die to the catapult somehow. So, I was forced to use my first flash grenade of the run. I threw it and hauled ass to the castle gate to get another checkpoint and waited until I got another checkpoint. Once I had gotten said checkpoint, I went back to the area I just left to see if anyone died. And lo and behold, of course someone died because God forbid I get and break in this damn game. So I had to reload the save from the start of the chapter. It wasn't a big deal though, just really annoying. I did the same strategy again, and after a few attempts I successfully got it done with 0 casualties. Great stuff. Now we have a bit of a tricky section yet again because Manlet Salazar isn't too happy that we refuse to hand over Ashley to him and throws his goons at us. Really cowardly considering we just spared about a dozen of his servants, but whatever. So knowing we aren't going to kill these dudes, I needed to form a strategy to perform a door skip in this room. You see, on PC at least, if you do the same method with the sniper scope that we've been using throughout this run and flick your mouse very fast and interact with the door, it will clip you to the other side of it where you can skip a large amount of things including the Garrador fight, which would save us a lot of time and an unavoidable kill. So it was very important we got this done. My first idea was to run straight to the door and perform the skip, then save the typewriter so Ashley could safely run back to me and through the door. This was pretty inconsistent and unsafe however, so I decided to try something else. I realized that when you piggyback Ashley over the wall so that she can unlock the door that leads to the Garrador, you're actually completely invincible. And the best part was Ashley would be completely safe since the enemies would not be able to follow her, giving me ample time to perform the skip with no problems as long as I could do it quick enough. It took several tries, but eventually it all came together and we made it through the door. Now, when I tell you this next room took me a total of 3.5 hours to complete, I am not kidding. This is by far the hardest room in this entire run thus far, and I have absolutely no idea if or how it could get harder than this. It is the combination of everything unholy about this challenge, and at certain points I was ready to throw in the towel. I'm of course talking about the water hall. The water hall is infamous all on its own with its general difficulty, at least coming from the original game, and it did not pull any punches for me on this challenge. The first section was honestly not that bad. I ran past the enemies, used the valve to lower the staircase, and abused the checkpoints like I have several times throughout the video. But this second phase is when it dawned on me how truly impossible this would be. During this second phase, you're supposed to kill all of the enemies that go toward Ashley so she can turn the valves to reveal the hidden platforms that allow you to advance forward and end the chapter. If the enemies grab her, it will completely reset the progress of the valve and they will begin to carry her away. Now obviously since this is a pacifist run, you can immediately see why this is a problem. I can't kill the enemies nor shoot them to stun them, so I was pretty stumped on what my strategy would even be. I can't just YOLO past everyone because Ashley is the one I have to rely on getting the job done here. I can't shoot them as I just said, so that left me with one option: flash grenades. Flash grenades are the only way I could keep the enemies off of Ashley while also not killing them, so I started to get to work to see what I could do. I was able to get Ashley to crank the first one pretty smoothly, but getting her to the second one was pretty much impossible and relied entirely on luck. It was here I also remember that Ashley gets affected by the flash grenades if they're too close to her as well, so I had to throw them in a way to miss her but hit the enemies. By the way, if you're curious how Ashley's AI works on this section, let me explain. If a zealot is in front of her, she refuses to run past them in any capacity. She will only move forward toward the next crank if there are absolutely 0 enemies in her path. With this in mind, I decided to see what the AI would do if they grabbed Ashley after the first valve was done. And to my surprise, they started carrying her in the direction she needed to go anyway. This was a good sign, so once she was fairly close and there were no enemies in front of her, I threw the flash grenade to see what happened. Yeah, well, that didn't turn out exactly how I'd hoped, but it was a nice start, or so I thought anyway. I didn't realize how lucky I had gotten for her to get past the enemies the first time. I also didn't realize how big of a pain only having 6 flash grenades here would be. I tried this exact method over and over and over and over again, and I failed in the exact same ways. It would either be Ashley getting hit by the flash grenades or her not getting past the zealots because the game refused to throw me a bone. I'm almost certain there's no real way I can manipulate their AI into letting her get by, so I just had to pray. In a fit of frustration, I started throwing hand grenades into the water beneath the enemies, and to my surprise it actually stunned them a bit. I thought this was a massive breakthrough because I figured I could use these hand grenades as a substitute to flash grenades and save them for later when I needed them while Ashley was on the second crank. While this was a pretty good concept, I realized it didn't do much to help at all. So I was pretty much back to square one. After about another hour and a half, I was pretty much done and decided to go up to the platform and do it myself. To hell with Ashley. Nah, I'm just kidding, but it was pretty cool to explore the top platform with Leon. What I'm not kidding about, however, is how damn done I was with this section. I was going to chalk this up to being impossible because even if Ashley got to the platform, I can never stop the Zealots from getting to her without stunning Ashley, which straight up kills any attempts if that happens. It had to be one perfect, fluid motion. I then resorted to a somewhat cheap last resort and put the bonus sunglasses on Ashley in the extras menu. The game doesn't tell you this, but if you put the sunglasses on Ashley, it actually prevents her from being stunned by flash grenades, which would be extremely helpful here. Now, if you want to call me a cheater, then by all means go ahead, because I kind of am, but I still had to beat it without killing anyone at the end of the day. This just sped up the process and saved my sanity. So, I continued to grind and grind and grind, until I finally had a chance. So there you have it. I completed Waterhall in Chapter 7 in its entirety without killing a single enemy. Sure, I had to use the sunglasses for Ashley, but you all saw how damn close it was anyways. I do think it's probably possible to do it without the sunglasses if you get lucky enough, but honestly everybody, I was just done with this chapter after 3.5 freaking hours, so I'm sure you can understand where I'm coming from. And with that all said and done, that is the end of part 1 of the Resident Evil 4 Remake Pacifist Challenge. If you all want to see part 2, then please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate all of your support as always. This has been your boy Yandere Gogeta, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.